A warm greeting. Today is Sunday, August 11th, 2024. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. At the time of recording this video, it is 6 p.m. local time in the northeastern Caribbean, where we are closely monitoring the newly designated potential cyclone number 5 of the season. For those unfamiliar with this term, is a designation given by the National Hurricane Center to disturbances that are not yet a tropical cyclone, but are projected to soon become a tropical depression and pose a threat to land areas. In this case, Invest 98 has been designated as Potential Tropical Cyclone number 5, which allows for the issuance of some tropical storm watches for the northern Lesser Antilles. It is important that residents of the northern Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico remain very attentive to the development of the future Tropical Storm Ernesto. Although we already have the first forecast from the National Hurricane Center with a projected path over the northern Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands, there is still some uncertainty about how close or far it might pass from the island of Puerto Rico. This uncertainty is entirely normal in systems that are in the process of development, because we still do not know exactly where the center of circulation will consolidate. And while the most likely scenario is that it will pass just to the northeast of Puerto Rico, there are still some scenarios that could bring this future cyclone closer to the island. This is precisely what the latest run of the GFS model shows, which I will be discussing later in this video. Look at the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, which projects that by the early hours of Tuesday morning, we will have Tropical Storm Ernesto just to the east of the Lesser Antilles, and during Tuesday morning, the system is projected to begin turning more to the northwest, which would bring the center of circulation crossing over the Virgin Islands during the early hours of Wednesday, and passing very close just to the east and northeast of Puerto Rico. It is projected that when it passes over the Virgin Islands and near or over Puerto Rico, it will be a strong tropical storm or a Category 1 hurricane, and in the medium to long term, it should maintain a northward trajectory, which would pose a threat to Bermuda in the long term. However, note that in the first bulletin from the National Hurricane Center, the islands in the northern Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands are within the cone of uncertainty, so it is important that we all prepare at least for the effects of a tropical storm. For our followers in the Dominican Republic, at the moment they are outside the cone of uncertainty, so the trends have been very favorable for you, and for now, no direct effects are expected to impact the Dominican Republic. Let's zoom in a bit to see where tropical storm watches have been issued. This includes the islands of Anguilla, St. Barthélemy, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, and Guadeloupe. The future tropical storm Ernesto is projected to cross the region during the afternoon hours of Tuesday and then over the British and American Virgin Islands during the early hours of Wednesday, with maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour. It is very likely that within the next 24 hours, this tropical storm watch will be upgraded to a tropical storm warning. The National Hurricane Center indicates that additional tropical storm watches may be issued tonight or Monday morning. In general, the forecast from the National Hurricane Center aligns closely with the projections of global models. You can see that they all agree that over the next 36 hours, the potential tropical cyclone will maintain a mostly westward trajectory. But by Tuesday morning, it should begin to turn more to the northwest, crossing over the northern Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands. There is good consensus on the trajectories, with the exception of the GFS model, which has a trajectory much closer to Puerto Rico. This was the midday run, but in this afternoon's run, it has a trajectory passing just south of or over the island of Puerto Rico, as I will show you later. However, the consensus is that it will pass just to the northeast of Puerto Rico, but until we have a defined center, some changes in the trajectory may occur over the next few days. In terms of intensity, there is also good consensus that it will continue to strengthen gradually, and when it passes over the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands, it should be a strong tropical storm, or possibly a Category 1 hurricane. Now, let's look at the latest projection from the GFS model that just came out a few minutes ago. In this projection, the GFS model shows a significant change due to a more southerly trajectory than what the GFS model shows, as it appears that two areas of maximum vorticity will continue interacting over the next few days as the tropical wave moves westward. And although the majority of models project that the vorticity to the east will end up dominating, and thus having a more rightward trajectory, sometimes the GFS model shows that perhaps the vorticity area to the west could consolidate. If this less likely scenario occurs, it could have a much closer trajectory to Puerto Rico. This is precisely what the latest run shows. See here that during the early hours of Tuesday morning, it has Tropical Storm Ernesto crossing over the arc of the Lesser Antilles, and while there are two competing areas of maximum vorticity, in the end, the one to the south dominates, causing the GFS model to cross this future tropical cyclone over Puerto Rico. Additionally, under this scenario, which I repeat is unlikely, it would also pass closer to the Dominican Republic. In the medium to long term, it would maintain a trajectory heading north, threatening the island of Bermuda. Something else I wanted to mention is that this projection of the GFS model should be taken with caution, as the model has been quite consistent in recent runs. In contrast, the European model has a more likely scenario with few changes in recent runs. Notice that the European model projects that a tropical storm will develop just east of the Lesser Antilles, moving over the region on Tuesday morning, then crossing over the Virgin Islands and passing about 50 miles northeast of Puerto Rico during the night of Tuesday into early Wednesday. Then, in the medium to long term, it is expected to take a northward trajectory, approaching the island of Bermuda next weekend. So you can see that the European model's projection aligns well with the projections of other models, and more importantly, with the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So it is prudent to consider that it will likely pass just northeast of Puerto Rico. However, remember that we are within the cone of uncertainty, and the scenario shown by the latest GFS model run cannot be ruled out at this time. Therefore, I urge everyone in Puerto Rico to continue monitoring the development of this future tropical cyclone. In fact, something interesting is that the German model also shows a more southerly trajectory, crossing over Puerto Rico during the early hours of Wednesday morning. However, most of the ensemble members of the European model have this trajectory over the northern Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands, with only a few bringing it toward Puerto Rico. Nevertheless, once again note the cone of uncertainty that extends from the Lesser Antilles to Puerto Rico, and this is why we need to continue monitoring its development. So, definitely, this afternoon we have little consensus between the two best global models, but remember that the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center tends to be the most accurate, and is currently the most likely scenario. Let's then talk about the expected impacts if the National Hurricane Center's forecast holds. But first, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of the videos during this special coverage. Go to the bottom of the video, click the red button that says subscribe, and then click the bell so you get notifications when I record new videos. Let's first look at the wind gust projection according to the European model. You can see that from Tuesday to Thursday. Some tropical storm force winds should affect the northern islands of the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and possibly the eastern half of Puerto Rico. This is why a tropical storm watch may be issued tonight for the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Hurricane force winds currently appear to stay to the north of Puerto Rico unless there is a change in trajectory as shown by the GFS model. More than the wind, we are concerned about the maximum rainfall accumulations expected over the next 4 to 5 days. You can see that for the northern Lesser Antilles, between 100 to 150 millimeters, as well as for the Virgin Islands and for parts of southern and eastern Puerto Rico, between 6 to 8 inches of rain are projected, with some regions possibly receiving over 8 inches of accumulated rainfall. This rain could cause significant flooding across the northeastern Caribbean. However, as shown in this graph, there is high uncertainty about where the maximum rainfall accumulations will occur. But if the future tropical cyclone maintains the European model's projection, rainfall accumulations will range from 2 to 6 inches from the island of Guadeloupe to the Virgin Islands and over parts of eastern Puerto Rico. Well, that's all for this forecast update. Please stay tuned. I will record a new video early tomorrow morning to monitor any changes that may arise in the projections, like the one we had this afternoon with the GFS model. So I ask for your patience regarding the changes in the projections over the past few days. However, tomorrow, several hurricane reconnaissance aircraft will be investigating the area, and with the data collected, we will have a better projection of its future trajectory and intensity. For now, I bid you farewell until the next video.